Okay, this is Sachin here. I'm going to continue a bit further on the Foundations workshop. That is on the 14th here of May. Now, there's another factor in all of this process. As we continue on this, weigh the cost of pleasing others versus betraying yourself. So this is another very difficult area in terms of our day-to-day interactions. To what extent do we please others, conform to what others are saying? Or is there a more tactful way to deal with disagreement versus, betraying yourself? Pleasing others versus betraying yourself. Weighing the cost. But there might be a way to carefully, mindfully navigate that. Because there's going to be situations where we cannot follow through on what others are telling us to do or wanting from us. Just won't be able to do it. So how do you go about answering them? Diplomatically, in the nice way, fine. Sometimes you just have to be clear cut that I can only go this far. I just cannot go further than this far. And these are the reasons why. And that's it. Some people may not like that. Now, how do you deal with others not being happy with your own decision? How do you deal with it? You just become careless to it? No, there's sensitivity to it. You express the sensitivity, but you also have to assert your own natural decision that's coming from your life circumstances, from our life circumstances, right? So this conflict between pleasing others and betraying yourself, we don't want to be in that conflict. We want to be able to interact with others and be true to yourself. So we want to avoid that conflict altogether. But if you don't want to be in that space of conflict at all, is that possible? Yes, through value clarification. Use values clarification to guide tough decisions. Where are my values? What are the things I want to use as my values to guide my right decisions and then to convey them to others? It's an art. So the ability to interact with others without conflict is an art. It's a tremendous art. There's no one formula to that because everyone's situation is different. These are general guidelines here. So decision making under conflict is very difficult because that conflict situation creates a lot of, it just creates a lot of distress, right? So there's 5 points here. I mean, these are good. These are good starting points. Prioritize alignment over perfection and outcomes. Yeah. Am I aligned? What is the best possible thing to do in the current situation that I have? And that's fine. So prioritize alignment over perfection and outcomes. I mean, outcomes may not be exactly what we want them to be, but are we aligned from inside? That's of relevance, right? The inner alignment is the same as the external alignment. But again, it's context specific. So acknowledge external pressures. That's always going to be there. I mean, you're driving a car, there's, everyone's going in their own direction, but they have to follow certain laws. There's somebody's honking or somebody's going fast, or you have to deal with all that stuff. That's the way life goes. External pressures are always there in life, in some form or other, mild to moderate to severe. They are there. And choose from within. Choose from inside what is the right direction given the entire situation. Right? There's a lot to be said about this. Decision making from coherence. From that state of coherence, then we act. These are more enduring decisions. The decision endures. It lasts a much longer period of time. So just being in a state of confusion, that is problematic. The conflicts definitely are there in life, but we can make a decision out of coherence. We have to get to coherence first and then make a decision out of that. All right, so that's pretty clear. Culture has a big factor in this. Collectivist cultures emphasize the me and role compliance, depending on the kind of culture we're living in. So it depends. Like many of the Eastern cultures tend to be more collectivistic, but not always. Things have changed a lot now everywhere, right? Role compliance. You're in this role, you have to comply to that role. Individualistic cultures promote the I and personal goals. So there's a cultural difference there also. Adolescents often face heightened identity conflict. There's a whole area of identity formation. James Marcia and Eric Erickson, a bunch of researchers have done a lot in identity development, but adolescents have to go through that. They're forming their identity, is getting formed. They're going to be conflicted to some extent. It's not that easy. There's expectations from all sides. They're developing their independent identity. Not easy. Adolescence and teenage are tough areas, so they can be. Life transitions amplify inner divisions. Transition points are there. Inflection points, transition points. Career, marriage, having children, there's life, because we're seeking happiness. So these transitions are part of life. They can amplify inner divisions, but again, in my mind, they are an opportunity for even more coherence. Rather than going in that divisive modality at some point, go into a more coherent modality. Right? But this is where we have to do our own inner work. If we don't do that, then the world will just run us over. Right? So that's another thing to keep in mind. Cultural evolution influences shifts in motivational norms. Yeah, as cultures evolve, that's the more bigger cultural, societal domain to all of this. That is also part of it. What are the benefits of integration? The benefits of integration are peace of mind, more authentic living, more self-confidence, more motivation, sustained effort in the right direction. Decision-making becomes coherent, meaningful. Relationships improve, right? There's a lot of integrity that happens in that. And through integrity, relationships improve. So the balance between the I and the me is a dynamic phenomenon. We've talked about this in the retreat also, about the fact that the TE, MDE are dynamic. I mean, that's what they live. The I and the me are within us. Is dynamic. It's not fixed. Every hour is dynamic. So continual reflection refines identity and direction. That was that whole idea. What's the next hour look like? Literally decide, in this hour, these 3 things are going to be done by me. And that's it. Once I have made a decision, it's the right one, then that is, there's a follow through. That means there's direction. My identity is more going to get aligned. My discipline is better because I've reflected, and I do that an hour at a time. Right? So that balances the I and the me. Therapeutic support can accelerate integration. Therapy can be in so many different ways. The word therapy means to kind of heal damage, technically. It just depends how that word is understood. But therapeutic in the sense that if there's damage, then the word therapy applies. Otherwise, it's just further development. Now, authenticity requires courage and adaptability. It's not easy. It's not easy because people first of all, are not authentic. So, you don't even know where they are in authenticity. But if one is really authentic, like for example, if I hold the principle that I want to listen to another person without judging them, whatever they might be saying, without being in a judgmental bias space, if I hold that, I need courage to do that. I have to be adaptable to do that. To reach that kind of authenticity to my own natural viewpoint. I may not agree with that person, but at the same time, I want to be very clear as to what they're trying to say. And then if I'm silent and patient and giving them the time of day and respect, which people don't do, unfortunately, if more people did that, probably these world conflicts would disappear. And people don't do that. The respect is gone for each other. And that's where then there's no authenticity. There's this facades that people are living through. Right? So integration then, lifelong practice of integration, is the foundation for self-mastery and purpose. Now, so these are all constructs, but I've tried to put them in very straightforward manner. The technical lingo that is in the Foundations book now, when we break it down, it comes to all of this. There's a lot of practicality here. So and that's why the Foundations book was created, so that we can look at the technical lingo and at the same time, really break it down in very meaningful nuggets like that we've done here. Okay. Now, let's go into just a little bit about cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is what? Discomfort from holding conflicting thoughts. I would expand that: conflicting emotions, conflicting desires, conflicting memories, all that. It's all dissonance. We don't want this. We don't want any of this thing at all. This cognitive dissonance and this internal dissonance, we don't want this at all. Now, one of the reasons why this happens is because our actions do not align with internal values. Action is in one direction, values is in another direction. And that will cause dissonance. That will cause a lot of regret, a lot of tension. We start making statements to others or using language with others that it's not in alignment with our natural self. Right? So this is a key point. Festinger, 1957. People seek to reduce this dissonance for mental comfort. Of course, because it causes tension. It changes the physiology of the body. We've talked about that before. This cognitive dissonance is another reason why there is so much discomfort in the mind. And then we want to reduce it somehow. So you got to find a way to reduce it and get rid of it. That's why we have the PTP program, to get rid of that thing. Now, motivational dissonance, then, because our motivation is damaged, it's going in different contradictory directions. It leads to anxiety. It leads to regret about choices. The wrong choices were made. Lots of examples of that in life. Lots of examples. Right? So resolving dissonance requires either changing beliefs or behaviors. It has to be resolved somehow. And to resolve it by listening to others, by seeing the whole picture, having a 360-degree vision, attending these retreats and attending these ideas and reflecting and discussing and why are we doing all this in Angel Wing for so many hours every single week? We're doing it to resolve internal dissonance. Festinger says cognitive dissonance, but it's not just cognitive. It's the whole internal dissonance inside oneself. Right? Okay. All right. So let's stop here for now because it is 8:01. I'm going to try to stick to time here. But yeah, so these are some thoughts here. Additionally on this, I'm glad we were able to cover some additional material here.